Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight. The upper chamber's Duterte bloc is throwing its support behind incumbent Senate President Ces Escudero. And the group says it's not because of how he has handled the vice president's impeachment case so far.
And help is on the way for Filipino seafarers in 2 ships targeted by Houthi rebels off the Red Sea. We check how the rescue operation is going from DMW Secretary Hans Kakdak, who joins us later on in the program.
And the group handling the country's digital financial transactions pitches in, backing the Bangko Central's move to crack down on online gambling.
His stand towards impeachment is not a factor to our decision in choosing him as our Senate President.
Hindi ako na-hurt, basta patuloy akong maninindigan.
The race for the Senate leadership had a major development today in favor of current Senate President Francis Escudero. The Duterte bloc, otherwise known as Duterte 7, is voting for Ces in his bid to retain the upper chamber's leadership. The Duterte 7 is made up of Senators Bato de la Rosa, Bongo, Robin Padilla, Rodante Marcoleta, Amy Marcos, Mark Villar, and Camille Villar. De la Rosa said the bloc had discussed Escudero's leadership in principle and have agreed to support it. De la Rosa has already signed the resolution expressing support for Escudero but can't say if the rest of the group had also done so.
Nagustuhan ko lang yung pamamalakad niya sa amin, sa Senado. Yung leadership niya is, nakita ko is very open to everything. Hindi siya close-minded, hindi siya porque ganito siya, panindigan niya ganito siya, o porque ganun, yung nakikinig siya. Nakikinig. So that's what we need as a democratic institution.
Back in May, Senator Bongo revealed that the Duterte 7 had agreed to vote as a bloc and that Escudero and Soto have already talked to them seeking their support. De la Rosa doused speculations that the impeachment of Vice President Sara Duterte was a factor in their support for Escudero.
His stand towards impeachment is not a factor to our decision in choosing him as our Senate President. Ang pinaka-big factor dyan na nakikita ko lang talaga is yung pagka-open niya. Nakikinig siya. Lahat ng sides pinapakinggan niya. So yun ang nagustuhan namin na liderato.
This development brings the emerging Senate majority to 15 if Escudero retains his leadership in the 20th Congress. Aside from the Duterte 7, Senator J.V. Ejercito said yesterday that the majority includes other sibling senators. Meanwhile, Senators Bam Aquino and Kiko are also said to be joining the majority, leaving Senator Risa Hontiveros alone in her independent minority bloc. But Hontiveros just shrugged this off.
Hindi ako na-hurt dahil yun na nga sabi ko nga, basta patuloy akong maninindigan. Kung ang bawat isa sa amin ay may sariling diskarte, ako rin naman po, basta nakatutok pa rin ako doon sa layunin na palakasin yung oposisyon, hindi lang sa loob, pati sa labas ng Senado.
A recent survey shows 2 sentiments about the upcoming impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. This report from mobile journalist Arles de los Santos.
Is the Senate deliberately delaying the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte? 44% of Filipinos believe so, according to a social weather station survey conducted between June 25 and 29. 25% said the Senate is not holding up the process, while 22% were undecided. For lawmakers in the lower house, this only means that the public can see through the upper chamber's action.
I do agree with that 44% na naniniwala na nadidelay ng Senado itong impeachment trial. As to whatever is their intention in doing that, we will leave that to them. After all, they are the impeachment court.
Dumaan ang Pasko, ang Bagong Taon, ang Chinese New Year, ang Valentine's Day. Pero hanggang ngayon, hindi pa rin nila nakikita yung inaasahan nilang pag-hold accountable doon sa isang opisyal na talaga namang nagnakaw at nang abuso sa kapangyarihan. So this delay is not just about people waiting to see the evidence. This is about people expecting the Senate to do its job. Pero hanggang ngayon, nga pa rin.
But there's another part of the SWS survey that is as interesting. The same poll found that more Filipinos disagree with the impeachment complaint against Duterte. That's 42% of the respondents versus 32% who agreed. High support for the VP came from Mindanao as expected at 60%. Majority of those backing Sara's ouster trial came from Luzon, particularly Metro Manila. Another notable SWS finding, only 59% are aware of the impeachment, with 41% of the respondents saying they only learned about it during the face-to-face interview. Now, it's the Vice President's turn to hail public opinion.
It's a pure political persecution at harassment. Dapat bang ibasura? Tingnan ng mga senator judges yung mga arguments namin dahil marami kaming mga solid legal arguments kung bakit dapat i-dismiss itong impeachment complaint.
But congressmen, especially House prosecutors, have different reading, insisting that surveys have no bearing over the overwhelming evidence against Duterte. There are 7 articles of impeachment that include the VP's alleged misuse of confidential fund of agencies she is handling or used to head.
If they're so confident about the survey, then why are they still pushing for dismissal of the impeachment case? Well, I guess that's a kind of conflicting altogether, believing in the survey and yet pushing for dismissal of the case.
Hindi natin po pwedeng panghawakan yung survey na yan dahil napakadami pa rin talagang undecided, no, na talagang gustong mapanood at gustong makita kung ano talaga yung nilalaman, no, na ebidensya na ipepresenta ng prosecutor.
It has been 5 months since the lower chamber transmitted the impeachment case to the Senate. The last few days of the 19th Congress saw senators sworn in as impeachment court judges who later on only voted to return the articles of impeachment to the House. The impeachment court is set to convene not earlier than July 29 when the 20th Congress officially opens. Mobile Journal Arles de los Santos. We are One News.
Alliances and the impeachment trial. It's shaping up to be an interesting Senate for the 20th Congress, and let's talk to one member who has revealed which camp he's on. Welcome to the Big Story, Senator Bato de la Rosa.
Thank you, Aziz, at magandang gabi sa ating lahat. Good evening po.
All right, you mentioned that there were other factors and not the stance of the Senate President on impeachment. What are these factors po that made you vote or put your support behind Senator Cheese?
The brand of leadership that he brings to the table, so far, so good. Majority of us are satisfied with how he handles the Senate leadership. So wala kami nakitang problema. So why fix if it's broken? So it's better for him to continue with the Senate presidency.
Pero sinuyo din po kayo ng kampo ni Senator Tito Soto.
Yes, may mga failures, may mga kumausap sa amin, but at the end of the day, kami lang rin mag-decide for ourselves.
Nabanggit niyo, Senator Bato, no, na kayo pumirma sa isang manifesto. Is this a physical piece of paper? Kasi nabanggit niyo rin that you don't know if others have signed it. So meron talagang umiikot na papel.
Yeah, meron papel. At pumirma na ako. Pumirma na ako sa papel.
So hindi niyo nakita sino pang ibang nakapirma?
Hindi ko na sinilip, basta yung signature ko na lang ang aking ginawa doon. Hindi ko na inalam kung sino yung ibang pumirma.
Well, Senator, there were also talks of a third force or yung dark horse na sinasabi. May dark horse nga po ba talaga, Senator, or is it just between Ces Escudero and Tito Sotto right now for the Senate presidency?
So far, yun ang emerging contenders, silang dalawa. I don't know kung meron pa bang ibang magpapahayag ng kanilang kagustuhan.
Now let's go to the impeachment trial, Senator, which is expected to begin on the 29th. Will you again do what you did in the last session where you moved to dismiss the complaint?
No. The first motion that I'm going to make is that I am going to ask the body, I am going to ask the Senate to determine if the current Senate, the 28th Congress, the Senate of the 28th Congress are still interested in to be bound by the actions that were made by the 19th Congress, by its predecessor. So yan ang itatanong ko, so that the issue on jurisdiction can be settled right away. Because tinanong natin ng impeachment court, yung House of Representatives 28th Congress, if they are still they are willing to be bound by the actions of their predecessor. So why not ask also the Senate of the 28th Congress the same question? So yan lang ang gusto ko rin i-bring up sa plenaryo when we reconvene as a Senate by 28th of this month. Or 29 yan siguro matitake up.
Even if the prevailing legal view is that the impeachment court is a continuing body, it continues from the 19th Congress to the 20th Congress.
It's one of the prevailing schools of thought, no? Meron din namang nag-o-oppose na nagsasabi na kasama dapat yung impeachment sa unfinished business. So wala namang nakasabi doon sa konstitusyon na iba yung legislative work. Ang unfinished business is only legislative work. Hindi included ang impeachment. Wala namang sinabi ang konstitusyon na gano'n. So merong nag-uumpugang ngayon dyan, paniniwala. So dapat masettle yan ng Senado bago tayo magsimula ng pag-reconvene ng impeachment court itong 28th Congress.
You may be viewed as once again trying to delay the process, Senator.
Whatever, you are free to think, you are free to shoot your opinion, but I am also free to raise my concern.
Senator, is this motion your own initiative, or is this something that you discussed with the Duterte 7 bloc?
No, we were not able to discuss these things up, but akin lang ito, personal ko lang ito na view. So I will take this up sa plenaryo when we come back.
Well, nabanggit nyo nga po, Senator, there are two sides, two views to this, to the impeachment. But some luminaries do say that once the articles of impeachment are transmitted from the House to the Senate doesn't really have the option of saying no, because under your constitutional duty, that's to try and decide an impeachment case. For you, Senator, is there really room for interpretation in those words, to try and decide? Kumbaga, nasa sa inyo po on how and when you will be taking on that role as a Senate impeachment court?
Yung sinasabi mong luminaries, yan yung mga luminaries na gusto talaga na matuloy ang impeachment. At meron naman mga luminaries na nagsasabi otherwise. So kahit na sinong luminaries kayo, the only body that can decide as to what really is the real score is the Supreme Court, the sitting Supreme Court. Sila dapat na mag-desisyon kung talaga bang merong jurisdiction itong succeeding Congress o wala. So, ang Supreme Court lang po ang makapag-desisyon yan. Not even former Supreme Court na justices. Yung present na Supreme Court.
How about the move to outright dismiss the articles of impeachment? Are you abandoning that?
Well, andyan yan. Hindi pa totally abandoned. But yun nga, isa yan sa mga, andyan lang yan sa, standby lang yan siya. Pero ay hindi ako mag-resort to that motion. Yung motion ko muna about jurisdiction ng i-raise ko.
Well, how would you respond to criticism, Senator Bato, that you are practically lawyering for VP Sara?
No. Ang nagsasabi niyan, yung mga anti-Duterte, pero yun namang mga pro-Duterte natutuwa naman sa mga pangyayaring ganon. So, this is a political process. Impeachment is a political process. So, we should be aware of kung ano yung mga issues surrounding the impeachment.
The point of view of those who are criticizing this move, Senator, is because it should emanate from the camp of VP Sara, who have already asked the impeachment court in her reply to the summons. The proper person to bring it up is the impeached officer and not you po as a senator judge. Yun po ang kritisismo.
Yung kritisismo na, but and if you can remember, di ba malaking kuan yun, malaking debate namin yun bago nag-convene ang impeachment court na gusto kong i-deliver yung aking privilege speech while we were still sitting as a Senate plenary, not as a impeachment court, di ba? Kasi ayaw pong yung nga, iwasan ko yung issue na ganun na magiging bias tayo. Niraise ko yan because nakalagay naman doon sa rules na the Senate can determine as to whether pwedeng ibasura yung impeachment or hindi because of some issues. Pwede naman yan pag-usapan. If you can remember, may mga precedents na yan na hindi tinalaka yung impeachment kahit na nakarating yung impeachment yung articles of impeachment ay hindi pa rin pinalakay. So, may mga precedents na yan. And the Senate as an impeachment court can decide on matters within their jurisdiction. But the impeachment court, jurisdiction nila yan kung i-dismiss nila o hindi ang kaso, i-convict nila or hindi na i-convict yung akusado. Nasa jurisdiction niya ng court, sa court.
Actually, a week or two ago, Senate President Ces Escudero in a press con was asked the same question. Ang sinabi niya is what he thinks is pwede ito pagdebatehan ng plenaryo, yung motion to dismiss. And a simple majority would actually get this dismissed. Do you share that view with the Senate President?
Correct. Because majority rules. Pagdating sa Senado, majority rules. The Senate as an impeachment court ay kailangan majority pa rin ang masusunod. Hindi po pwedeng hindi majority.
Senator Bato, Senator Mig Zubiri did agree that this is a witch hunt, this impeachment trial proceeding against Vice President Sara. But he did agree that trial should proceed para mapakita lahat ng ebidensya, mapakinggan both sides. For you, Senator, if trial does proceed, what would be the threshold of evidence required to prove guilt on the part of the Vice President?
Well, I cannot tell you right now. Kasi hindi pa man namin talaga na-take up yung kung ano-ano yung dapat i-consider namin. Pero yung basis naman ng aking yung grounds na yun, bakit ako nag-move for the dismissal, di ba?
All right, we do thank you for your time. Thank you for joining the Big Story, Senator Bato de la Rosa.
Right, moving on to other news. PCSO Chairman Felix Reyes has denied allegations of case fixing to protect the alleged mastermind behind the case of the missing Sabongeros. Reyes told whistleblower Julie Dondon Patidongan to shut up if he can substantiate claims of case fixing in favor of gaming tycoon Charlie Atong Ang. Patidongan alleged that a former judge who now holds a top position inside the PCSO is fixing cases for Ang, giving him the power to supposedly influence the justice system. Reyes previously served as an RTC judge in Marikina before being appointed as PCSO chairman in 2024. He also served as RTC judge in Taguig, Lipa City in Batangas, and Calamba City in Laguna. Reyes has authorized the Bureau of Immigration to release his travel records to disprove claims of overseas trips with prosecutors and judges. He also called the accusations baseless and said they emerged suspiciously one day after he filed his application for ombudsman.
We're just going to take a quick break, but coming up, we check on Filipino seafarers aboard vessels recently attacked by rebels in the Red Sea. DMW Secretary Hans Kakdak himself gives us updates. When the Big Story returns, stay tuned.
You're back on the Big Story. Houthi rebels released a video of their purported exchange with a captain of Liberian flag cargo ship Magic Seas before they attacked and sank it in the Red Sea.
You have to stop the ship immediately. Over. Captain, if you keep ignoring Yemen Naval Forces contact and instructions, you will bear all responsibility.
Magic Seas, this vessel is engaged in lawful passage and request you do not impede my safe passage. Over.
A few moments later, Magic Seas exploded. This was followed by cries for help from seafarers aboard the ship. Rebels were even seen entering the ship. Blasts continued from all directions until Magic Seas eventually sank. According to the Department of Migrant Workers, 17 of Magic Seas' crew are Filipinos. Unfortunately, they all survived. Fortunately, they all survived, rather. They were all brought to Djibouti and will be flown back to the Philippines. Aside from the Liberian cargo ship, the Houthis also attacked Greek cargo ship MV Eternity Sea. 21 of the vessels, or 22 of the crew members, are Filipinos. 2 have been reported injured and 2 are missing, but authorities can't verify their identities yet. And we now get updates straight from Secretary Hans Kakdak of the Department of Migrant Workers. Good evening. Welcome to the Big Story. Secretary, can you give us an update on our kababayans from both ships?
Yes, with respect to the MV Magic Seas, the seafarers are safe. 17 of them are fine, and they are slated to come home on the 11th of July. That's 2 days from now. So we are waiting their return, their safe return, and we will provide the necessary arrival assistance, as always, directed by the President. With respect to the MV Eternity Sea, unfortunately, it's a different story. This morning, with 21 Filipino crew, this morning, there was a rescue operation supposed to be undertaken by maritime security firms, and the ship had stalled. The ship was attacked on July 8th, crossing over. July 7th, crossing over to July 8th, so midnight and onward. It was attacked by rocket propelled grenade fire and hit, unfortunately, the engine room and the bridge and the communications section of the ship, which stopped or which blocked communications, the possibility of contacting the seafarers on board, especially the Filipino captain. The ship was on its way to Jeddah. It had come from Egypt to Somalia to Jeddah. And between Somalia and Jeddah was the time that it crossed over to the middle of the Red Sea near off the coast of Hodeida, Yemen, and that's where the attacks ensued. And so the ship had stalled from where it was attacked. And as I said this morning, we met with the families. The president provided instructions to take care of the families. So we met with the families and the ship owner, who assured the families that there will be rescue operations. The rescue operations were underway. However, at around 1 p.m. Philippine time, we received word that the ship had sunk. As to why or how, in terms of the events that occurred since the time that the rescue operations transpired, we will have to find out because when the rescue teams arrived and the ship had sunk, there were 5 Filipino seafarers on the water, and they were in life vests, and they were all rescued. So they're now in safe custody. I just won't disclose by whom and where for security reasons. But we will find out from the 5 as to what transpired exactly, which caused the ship to sink. Now, as for the rest, there is a continuing search operation for the rest. It's still around 3 p.m. Local time where the ship is, where the seafarers could possibly be. But we're hoping, of course, that they will be found. So there's an ongoing search. What complicates the search is that the presence of still armed skiffs, armed small boats, and armed, of course, with armed individuals on those boats. So that's what's complicating the situation. But nevertheless, there will be there is an ongoing search operation, and we hope that more seafarers will be found.
In terms of weather conditions, Secretary, in that area where the Eternity Sea sank, malamig po ba yung tubig? Or it's, a bit more temperate?
Well, it is the height of summer in that part of the world. I'm just not sure if the cold or the heat would be bearable, but for sure, the 5 who were found had stayed afloat. As to how long, I'm not sure, but they had stayed afloat enough for them to survive. So they were found, and hopefully the others too will be found.
Based on their account, the account of these 5, other Filipinos could still be found. Were they trapped? What did they say?
We will find out, but the preliminary information that we have is the possibility that they had gone overboard with their life vests. So we're hoping and praying that that is the case, and hence they could be found. So we will find out, as I said, the greater details of this when we start talking to the 5 who had been found. As to how or why the ship had sunk, because days before, while it had tilted and had been badly damaged, there was no talk of a possible sinking, although of course there were risks that the ship could sink. But we would just want to know the details in terms of the sinking of the ship, and of course as to how they ended up in the water. So we will find these details out more as the days unfold, and we get to see and talk to the 5, and hopefully there could be more than 5.
Was the captain one of the 5?
We are still trying to confirm this information, Ms. S.
Well, Secretary, this is not the first time that Filipino seafarers have been attacked by rebels. In fact, that's why in 2024 there were guidelines that allowed Filipino seafarers to divert their voyages away from the Red Sea, and they could even opt to refuse deployment in high-risk areas. So why does this still continue to happen? Are they deliberately asking to be deployed in these areas despite the risks?
Well, there's one thing about the nature of seafaring, and that is one could leave our country and go to a place that is not necessarily in a high-risk area, but in the midst of being between ports or of call, It's possible that one could be assigned in an area where there is high risk, but so therefore the measures that we have in terms of diversion, in terms of reporting, the mining agencies and the ship owners are required to report if they would have seafarers on their ships that navigate across the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. There are preliminary findings in this case which indicate that no such report had been submitted, but that is for days to come. What is important at this stage is that we are focused on the effort to rescue the seafarers. And well, right now we have initially already suspended the mining agent and the principal anyway, pending future investigation. So there will be a proper reckoning in terms of the compliance with our rules. There are rules on reporting, risk assessment, the requirement to have armed guards and military escorts on board. All of these requirements will be brought to the fore when we investigate.
And Secretary, can we also get an update on the Filipinos, the OFWs who were repatriated from Israel and Iran? I believe a total of 72 have already come home. What's the latest on them, and will there be more on their way?
Yes, a total of 72, and there will be more on the way. There will be, in fact, as we speak, I just got a message that 18 had been boarded. There is a flight on its way, and there will be 3 other flights up and coming with around 59 more arriving in between those 4 flights. So that would be 72 plus 59, so around 131 total by the time the 4th flight arrives around July 16th.
Were there some that backed out since tensions have eased?
Yes, admittedly, we have around nearly 400 requests for repatriation, but with the ceasefire easing of the tensions, then there have some who have had second thoughts, as we call them. So we have a second thoughts category in our and but still, as we said, of course, with the lowering of the alert level, that might have caused some to have second thoughts. But whether or not the alert level is 2 or 3. It had been lowered from 3 to 2. Whether or not it's 3 or 2, we will still continue, based on the directive of the President, to help those who wish to be repatriated. And of course, the whole of government approach that the President had so designated upon arrival, well, on site and upon arrival. So we are banded together with the DFA, with the DSWD, with the DOTR, with the DOH, and the TESDA.
Going back to the issue of our Pinoy seafarers, how can we better protect them? It's getting more and more dangerous to be manning these kinds of vessels in that part of the world.
Well, we have right now a ban in terms of those a prohibition, or should I say, for those whose ships had been attacked. Or those under threat. So we already have that in place, but of course right now the matter on an absolute prohibition could come to the fore, given the occurrences here as of late, and we cannot ignore the fact that this perhaps could be a grave attack, the gravest attack of all. To our seafarers on board ships along the Red Sea.
Surely, probably, we can assume, Secretary, that they're offered higher pay in riskier areas, and it may be difficult to turn down.
Well, it goes with the nature of the work. As I said, it's double compensation. It's no different from, say, hazard pay. In every line of work, even in government, we have a hazard pay, so to speak. But also, as I said, it's in the nature of the work for one to get an assignment at midstream that will end up to be in a high-risk zone. And that is why we have mechanisms of reporting. And we need to mention the right to refuse sailing. Because if there is a freedom to navigate on the part of the ship owner, there is a right to refuse sailing on the part of a seafarer. So if one, for instance, is told that he or she will not board a ship that will fly a high-risk zone upon departure from the Philippines, but will be eventually made to do so in a certain port of call, then we have regulations on how to exercise this right to refuse sailing, which can either be in written form. We have a specific department order on this, which could either be in written form or verbalized. Kung hindi kaya o kinakabahan yung seafarer na isulat yung kanyang right to refuse sailing. So we have the mechanisms in place. Last year, over 200 seafarers exercised this right to refuse sailing. So many have actually refused and exercised this right to refusal. In fact, our rules even say that if they refuse, they will be given 2 months' salary and free repatriation without any form of discrimination practiced upon them, meaning they will not be stigmatized.
They might be blacklisted or,
Yes,
there's no such risk.
We have these mechanisms in place, and in the case of the Eternity Sea, it was a Filipino captain who is the captain of the ship. So we will definitely look into this case and how else we can have tighter, stricter regulations and thereby prevent any further occurrences.
We do hope they are found safe and sound in the middle of the sea. Thank you so much, Secretary Hans Kakdak, Secretary of the DMW.
Moving on to other news, President Bongbong Marcos has approved the recommendation of the Local Water Utilities Administration on the prime water issue. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the president himself reviewed the said recommendation, which includes fixing the water supply of affected customers. Castro, however, did not further elaborate on the recommendation. Castro also clarified who the Secretary of the Presidential Communications Office is. Castro said Jay Ruiz remains at the helm on an acting capacity. Just this week, rumors were rife that Ruiz had been replaced by veteran print journalist Dave Gomez.
We'll be pausing for another quick break, but when we return, we speak to an expert on gaming law and policy who believes that an outright ban on online gambling will do more harm than good. Don't miss that conversation here on The Big Story. Keep it here on One News.
The Big Story is back with the leading digital finance industry group supporting the Bangko Central's move in tightening control over payment channels linked to online gambling. In a statement, FinTech Alliance Philippines said its members will blacklist prohibited platforms and enhance due diligence for all merchant accounts classified under licensed online gaming. As the debate rages on whether to regulate or completely ban online gaming, the Alliance says it is prepared to educate Filipinos on the risk of being addicted to this pastime. Last week, the central bank said it's collecting feedback from stakeholders on a draft circular that would require banks and e-money issuers to place limits on gaming access to protect Filipinos from any danger. Members of the alliance include GCash, Maya, GrabPay, RCBC, and CIMB Bank. And now let's have a legal expert in gaming law and policy weigh in on the ongoing debate on how to curb online gambling. And joining us is Attorney Tonette Kyoge of Arden Consult, an advisory and consulting company that specializes in regulatory guidance for businesses. Welcome to the show, Attorney Kyoge.
Good evening, ladies, and hello, Seth. Thank you for having me.
Well, you are advocating just a regulation and not an outright ban, which some legislators are pushing. Tell us why.
Correct. I call it smart regulation, Seth, and I really want to explain it because, legislation, it's good, right? But I think in all types of legislation, it should always be based on actual data, what is going on, I guess, currently right now, looking at the scenarios. And of course, having a view also of the international framework of where online gaming is. Because I think the worst that can happen is we have knee-jerk reactions on current events, and then it will take us a step back, right? So I think that's what we're advocating, that our legislators, although I do believe they have very good intentions to protect society, to protect the youth, it should still be based on like real and actual data as to how these laws will eventually be enforced.
Although currently there is a lack of safeguards, you would admit this. I mean, anybody can go to an online gaming site even if he's not 21, he or she.
So I think, Seth, it would be best if we distinguish between the illegal and then the online, and then the legal online gaming sites, meaning those that are licensed and regulated by
Those
PAGCOR.
that are licensed, those that are licensed do have safeguards. You have to prove that you are 21. I wouldn't know. I'm not. I don't do. I never
Me
tried.
too. They do. I had to try, Seth, for market research purposes only.
But that
Yes.
kind of system is expensive, right? You have to invest in a real back-end operation.
You have to have your back-end operations. This is the first thing actually that PAGCOR checks before your online gaming system is approved by PAGCOR. So what I've experienced is that PAGCOR really requires you, before you get a license or an accreditation, they do a walkthrough. Then you have to show that, okay, these are the steps. You have to prove that, okay, for example, I am a gamer, I am a player. How do I log in? What ID do I have to give, right? What are some, kasi now they also have the facial recognition. I guess the more high-tech companies do that, which is really, I think, best in class. So they can do it on their own. And then there are also third-party providers. So I think what PAGCOR has done naman is they also try to narrow down and really require the online gaming operators to have these systems in place. That's why, I guess, as you mentioned earlier, right, smart regulation is the gaming age is actually already 21. I know there are some bills that require it to be 21, but if you look at the rules of PAGCOR, it is already 21. And if you are a licensed operator, you are required to comply with that. Now, the problem is, and I guess this is what you were alluding to earlier, is that there are the unlicensed ones, which, I mean, I hear,
Like how many?
I was talking to a marketing unlicensed, my gosh, we can't count because they're based, some of them are based offshore. They have thousands of websites. One of the things also that we help PAGCOR with is, of course, it's to the interest of the licensed ones to report these unlicensed operators. So we report them to PAGCOR. It takes, and this is a whole process to take them down, and maybe it goes into enforcement also. But once you take them down, there's hundreds again that pop up, the same day or even like the same minute. So I guess going back to...
Will legislation do away with all of this? All of these illegal, hundreds, thousands illegal sites? No.
So illegal online gaming is actually already a crime because it's in the revised penal code. It's illegal, right? It's not regulated by PAGCOR. Only the ones regulated by PAGCOR are legal. Plus, there's also the Cybercrime Act, right? Like if you're committing it through the internet, then it's a crime under that. So there just needs to be enforcement. I guess that we use technological
tools to do this.
The law is there, but
walang enforcement.
The usual problem.
Siguro, we just need political will and really to I guess, to use tools also. It's not easy. These illegal online gaming sites are very smart, right? Most of them are based abroad. So their technology, it's parang mga hackers, right? We also need technology and tools to fight them. So once you remove, because according to the data of PAGCOR, there's still more than 50% of the players that play in these illegal gambling sites, right? So I'm not saying that we shouldn't regulate the legal, but what we should do is, it's a two-pronged approach, right? Get rid of the illegal first, so that the ones who are there in the illegal sites move to the legal. And then once they're there, it's like they're in the sandbox, that's when you regulate them. Because what's going to happen, and this is already, yes, go ahead, sorry.
I'd like to ask if these illegal sites have access also to the payment channels. It's easy, because the payment channels should be, of course, more discerning on who they will allow to use their platforms.
And that's actually a very good point, because if you ask, international, I guess, the studies on fighting online gaming, the two best ways to fight illegal online gaming is through, first of all, the payment providers.
Yeah.
You really have to restrict their payment providers. And second, the game providers. Because this is their ecosystem, right? If they don't have games, if the suppliers of the games do not provide to them, then they don't have a product to sell. So you're right. It's really the payment service providers requiring them, which I believe is already in the law, and the BSP has already implemented this, that they can only work with legal online gaming sites. And then the new rules that have been rolled out by PAGCOR, that if you are a gaming provider, and there are a lot, they're usually based abroad, you have to only work with the legal gaming operators, because you kill their supply, right? And then you kill their source of funds. I think those are the two things that should be focused on if ever there will be a law that will be focused on intensifying the fight against illegal gaming.
Okay, well, what about PAGCOR as the regulator? We've seen what happened with the illegal POGOs, so this is kind of similar, attorney. Do you think they have enough powers to regulate? Do you think they've done a good job? What can they do? Do they need help? Do we need civil service organizations in there?
I think the fight against illegal gaming is really, PAGCOR, of course, as the regulator, is there. They are there. I think the nature of a regulator is, you draft rules, you pass the rules, and then you regulate, you issue licenses, and then you regulate the licensees under you. I think what people probably don't, what not everyone understands is PAGCOR is the regulator, although the enforcement is still with our enforcement bodies, right? So there still needs to be, I guess, collaboration and coordination between the two. A very concrete example, I mentioned illegal online gaming sites, right? We report to PAGCOR because they are the regulator. So we tell them, PAGCOR, these sites are not legal, and they're operating illegally in the Philippines. PAGCOR, they can't shut the sites down, right? PAGCOR has to write the NTC. The NTC, the National Telecommunications Commission, then has to review and then write the telcos. And the telcos then have the obligation to take them down. And this is a process. Sometimes it can take maybe 3-4 days, sometimes a week, depends on the process. But then these operators, these illegal websites have already caused harm, have probably already created new websites to scam people. So I guess that's just an example of how PAGCOR, as the regulator, they do. Yes.
Yes. Sorry, you mentioned telcos, right? You mean to say block the access to the IP address, because sometimes they're in, I don't know, Cambodia, Myanmar, Lord knows where, right? So they can block it. And are the telcos willing?
They can. So if you give, I believe the telcos are willing. There was even, I understand there's a program now wherein, I think in collaboration with the DICT and the NTC, there is a way to report these illegal websites, and the NTC and the telcos are required to take them down. So again, maybe more information sharing between our regulator and the enforcement bodies, because PAGCOR, as the regulator and the licensing body, they can only regulate those that are licensed under them. You mentioned the POGOs earlier, right? Which is totally different, although I understand that people, I guess, because of how the topic is being discussed now, there may be conflating the two, but PAGCOR cannot and can only regulate, they can only enter the buildings of those that they regulate, right? But I think this is one of the ills, again, that will happen if we do ban online gaming sites, right? I mean, the legal ones, because PACCOR will lose, all its powers to regulate or even, to monitor the activities of online gaming sites.
Attorney, two questions for me. One on the minimum bet and two on advertisements. Minimum bet, I was surprised it could go as low as 50 cents. 1 peso, and you can already keep betting your money. Should we raise the minimum bet, the limit, to 5,000, 10,000 pesos, just like what Senator Gatchalian proposed?
Setting limits is okay. I think that's also part of, I guess, what the legislation can provide. But I think it has to go again to studying whether those limits are going to be too prohibitive, such that, okay, the players will go to the illegal gaming sites, because there it's like, I don't know what the lowest is, but I don't think they have any limits, right? So I think limits are okay, and this is not unheard of. In other countries, they also have this. So there can be 2 limits, right? Like your first deposit to, I guess, show that you have the funds or the capacity to bet, and then the ongoing one. So I think I don't have like an actual amount, but again, maybe studies have to be done on what is a proper amount that will not drive them away, such that they go to the illegal gambling sites, which is, really the enemy here, if I may say. But just enough, I guess, to still control the amounts that are put in.
And Attorney, just quickly on advertisements, I mean, should they be banned? What should be done? How can we regulate them? Because they're everywhere. Billboards, digital advertisements. I mean, you can't even click exit until after 5-10 seconds.
Yes.
You know what? My algorithm doesn't give me those gambling ads. Thank goodness.
Target market ako. Depends which site I go to. I tried.
If you have
some market research. Market research.
If you have your phone now, baka they can hear you, and yeah, you'll have the ads, right? For advertisements, again, in other countries, there are different types, right? So the more mature ones, they do have an advertising ban, right? For some, they just regulate it. I think the best way to also address advertising is maybe through education. I talked to some marketing firms that are...
Diba? Sorry to interrupt, but cigarettes,
Correct,
liquor, they're
correct.
not allowed. So gambling is as insidious.
Yes, that is...
Even more so.
That is, I guess that is possible. I think with cigarettes, right? I think the Tobacco Act took that that path. It was more of education, right? Like what signs to put in. My understanding, I don't want to preempt anything, but my understanding is that PACCOR will tie up. This is again one of the things where PACCOR has the rules, the guidelines, but we also have the ASC, the Advertising Standards Council, that should implement and enforce these ads. I mean, the regulations on those ads. So maybe we can wait for that and see whether the guidelines that they will put in will be sufficient.
Okay.
But again, we have to also stop the illegal online gambling ads, because, I mean, they are sometimes allowed. I mean, there are endorsers. I mean, I'm not going to name names, but I see sometimes popular endorsers that endorse illegal gambling websites. There are sports events that are sponsored by illegal gambling websites. So again, Seth, basta equal protection, right? I mean, the illegals should not also be allowed to advertise.
One final question for me, because you've been in the industry for quite some time. How widespread is it, and how much money are we talking about here? How much is being bet on a monthly basis on illegal and legal?
I do not have the numbers. My understanding is, and I have it in dollars because I just talked to a client about this. Last year, 2024, the gross gaming revenue was $6 billion.
Imagine that.
Yes. But, it also equates to, and again, Seth, there is also an underground market, right? More than 50% of that. I understand is being gambled illegally, and they are not paying taxes. Now, I guess the question is, as I think one of the columnists mentioned it, is it a necessary evil, wherein we just regulate it? Similar to, as you mentioned, alcohol, right? Alcohol is there. We set age limits. You can't drink and drive. So it's really a matter of making sure that the regulations and I guess the guidelines are in place to protect, I guess, society and whoever is in it.
Thank you for talking to us. Tonette Kyoge of Ardent Consult.
All right, and we've run out of time.
Oh my God. A minute ago.
That's it for the big story this midweek. Thank you so much for watching.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
We'll be back here tomorrow, 7:30. See you then. Have a good night, everyone.